Thank you again to Matt and Adira. There were some really great insights into how we're all feeling about Sydney at the moment. My name is Harry Bancroft. I'm the Policy Manager for our Mobility Program area at the Committee for Sydney, and I'm here to introduce up our next speakers. Matt has already built a really nice segue for me. I think he has pointed out that we've got some bleak challenges that we're looking at, but I'm here to invite up our first two speakers for the big ideas for Sydney, and this is really about ideas that people have had that might help us overcome some of these challenges. We first introduced this part of the summit in 2022, and it's been a crowd favourite. We get lots of great feedback about it every year and in our member surveys. So we're back again in 2024 to hear our big ideas. So this year, keeping with the theme on intergenerational equity, we asked you guys to answer a couple of questions. We wanted to really be thinking about whether Sydney is going to be a playground for the privileged few in the future, or if it's going to be a safe, welcoming, affordable city for all. So with that in mind, we put out the call to crowdsource big ideas, and we asked for something that we haven't yet imagined, a solution to a problem that no one is talking about, or the simplest thing that could make the biggest change. So we've had four big ideas selected by the Sydney Morning Herald, and you're going to hear the first two now. So our first presenter is Ellis Blaikie, and she's Executive Officer of Advocacy and Impact at Bridge Housing, and she's got a big idea about carbon credits for social housing retrofits. And then following Ellis, we'll hear from Christian Gortzet, who is a former journalist and producer now working in the electricity sector. And he's presenting his big idea for wireless EV charging in Sydney. So if you can put your hands together, I'd like to welcome Ellis Blaikie to the stage.
Hi, I'm Ellis and I work at Bridge Housing. We're a Sydney-based community housing provider with a mission to change lives for the better. I'm here to talk about how we can improve the quality of our existing social housing so that it's climate resilient and meets the needs of our residents. This is about real change for real people. But before I do, I'd like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the traditional owners of the beautiful Gadigal land that we're meeting on here today, and acknowledge that concepts around sustainability, caring for country, and caring for community have existed in this place for time immemorial. Always was, always will be, Aboriginal land. Put yourself in the shoes of our residents. You've got two young kids and a partner with a disability. You're living in an old, uninsulated home in Western Sydney. You've got $300 after rent, and the bills are piling up. It's really, really hot. But you need to choose between putting on the fan and putting dinner on the table. What do you do? It's easy to build efficient, sustainable homes when you're starting from scratch. It's much harder to improve the performance of our existing homes, which account for a quarter of electricity consumption and more than 10% of carbon emissions. But shifting this will be critical in meeting our carbon reduction targets. Social housing homes are some of the least energy efficient. Most were built before there were any requirements to consider energy efficiency or thermal comfort, and researchers have recorded temperatures of up to 40 degrees inside some homes in Western Sydney on a hot day. At the same time, social housing residents are some of the hardest hit by climate change and other social pressures. Over 90% live on fixed Centrelink incomes, 2/3 have a disability or a chronic health condition, and the majority will be living with us for 10 plus years and many for life. Even the lucky few with aircon generally won't turn it on due to the cost. And then there are the health impacts of extreme weather, in particular heat, which puts strain on our vital organs. Heat is linked with higher irritability and aggression, which leads to increased rates of depression, suicide, and domestic violence. Our residents don't have the financial means to improve the energy performance of their homes, and as charities, we don't generate the incomes to be able to pay for these upgrades. Neither community housing providers nor our residents can access the schemes available to homeowners to help improve the energy performance of their homes. As we transition to net zero, a lot of companies are purchasing carbon credits to offset their residual emissions. At the same time, more companies are looking for offsets and investments that deliver social returns in line with their ESG and corporate social responsibility commitments. Carbon credits aren't perfect, and there's been greater scrutiny as regulators and companies scramble to avoid greenwashing and find local projects that deliver meaningful and lasting environmental impacts. Despite these issues, carbon credits generate hundreds of millions of dollars in investment. So what if we channeled this corporate investment into the retrofit of social housing by creating a new carbon offset category, one that would deliver very measurable environmental outcomes while creating a measurable social impact for some of the most disadvantaged people in our community. This innovation would deliver a much-needed funding stream for community housing providers to pay for these upgrades. We want to do this, and we know the importance, but funding is our biggest hurdle, and we're not going to achieve the scale of change required through government grant programs alone. Retrofitting social housing would drive innovation in residential retrofits and reduce the costs by creating a market for these technologies that other owners would benefit from. It would drive best practice and help us to prioritise the initiatives that deliver the greatest social and environmental return on investment. Energy retrofits deliver a social impact for our residents. Improving the performance of a home from a 1-star to a 3-star rating reduces consumption by 30%. That's almost enough to offset the price hikes of the last few years and very welcome household budget relief for our residents. And then there are the health and wellbeing benefits that come with improved thermal comfort. Better focus, better emotional and physical regulation, better sleep. And these translate into tangible community benefits through increased participation and avoided healthcare costs, in particular avoided hospital admissions. Retrofitting community housing will help to drive progress towards our carbon reduction targets in a way that builds climate resilience at the community level. We know that we haven't acted quickly enough to halt global warming, so embedding the capacity to manage the impacts of climate change in our city is even more pressing. Critically, this innovation would support an equitable Sydney for community housing residents and generations to come. Carbon credits for social housing retrofits would enable companies to deliver and invest in local offsets that deliver measurable social and environmental returns while creating a legacy for our children. And this is Tanya. She used to live in an old unit before moving into a newer one with a higher energy performance, which has made the world of difference for her. Good insulation, draft ceiling, quality windows and deep eaves mean that her home is generally a comfortable temperature without the need for heating and cooling. Her bills are lower than they were at the old place, and she's not worried about using power for essentials like popping on the fan, making a cup of tea, or watching TV. She's more comfortable, her well-being has improved, and this means she's got the energy to support her local community. Carbon credits for social housing retrofits is about real change for real people. It's a meaningful investment in our future, in our community, in changing people's lives for the better, and in climate resilience. Together, we can make a difference. Thank you.